Alright, Beryl, let's get it.
Let's fight.
For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, from the capital city of the United States of America, Washington, D.C., ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rumble!
Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started. Looks like a small crowd right now. Not surprised. We do these cool recordings now. I'm gonna do a really cool recording like I did last time, with all the graphics and pictures and stuff, so anybody missing it can see it, and then if you are here, you can see more cool details when we do that. But yeah, everything's never better. You know, I know times in the market are tough, and I think it's, a lot of that emotion and stuff is reflecting on the investment positions here. And I think SDRC having to delay revenue slightly got some people in their emotions. But I know for a fact that everything is never better. From all the companies, money-wise, confidence-wise, asset-wise, progress-wise, internally, everything is never better. BYRG, all the Max, SDRC. So all the noise out there is completely unwarranted, 99.9% BS. But always funny to see. So, I'm going to start off a little different today. I always start out at the top with SDRC. I'm going to start at the bottom today. And I'm going to start out with PTEL. Let's start out with PTEL. So, you guys saw the LOI. I don't have to talk much about all that. It pretty much says everything that needs to be said. We keep the PTEL channel updated. And that, what's great here is, us taking control of this thing, Red Beryl, we know exactly where every single share is. Like literally every single share, and that's probably one of the most exciting parts about having control of a project like that, is just how clean we're going to be able to have it, and know where every share is and where every share is coming from. Being able to react off such is going to be incredibly helpful if this deal closes. Which I expect it to. Everything's going well so far. You guys can see the latest update on Twitter. We got the Delaware State all rectified and paid off and up to date, because PTEL hasn't been, none of that's been updated in years. So we got that all paid for, up to date and fixed, and that needed to happen for us to proceed forward with getting the DTC chill off. Giving you all a heads up, not sure we'll be able to get the DTC chill off until after an asset is merged in. We're gonna see. We're discussing that with the company and a lawyer. but the DTC chill might not be able to come off until the asset is merged in and there's what they call a current business. Because right now PTEL is just a shell. So we'll see about that, and I'll keep everyone updated on that process. But either way, it will happen. It's just the timing on when it will happen might change. So we're working on that. But the next big thing are those share cancellations on PTEL, which once again, if you look at the PTEL Discord channel, you can see how we broke down where every share is. Our next main goal is to target that 131 million share block and also ensure that PTEL follows through on the cancellation of the 300 million. And those are two key steps towards ensuring the LOI closes, which we're confident this all goes well, unless something pops up that's completely unexpected. The difference with PTEL, I would say, versus AFFL is we already have an idea and an asset and a whole business. We already know what PTEL will be if the deal closes and goes well. Versus AFFL. Hang on one second. Gotta put my giant piece of pegmatite in front of I use a giant piece of pegmatite as a doorstop. It's really windy here. So where was I? PTEL. So yeah, the difference is from AFFL is we already have a asset. We already have all that targeted, and we know what PTEL will be upon the successful closing of the LOI and taking control. So the difference with AFFL is it's a shell, but they're still not entirely sure what AFFL will be yet. They're DDing several assets. The one thing that is for sure, though, is obviously both of these are very clean. So that's kind of where we're at with PTEL. I just wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of what's going on there. I can't talk too much, and there's not really too much to talk about until the LOI is perfect and change of control is solid and we merge the asset in. But the great thing is we already know what's going in. We're super excited about it, and we're targeting a very specific area of the market that is needed. It's a great asset. I'll just say that. Any questions on PTEL, feel free to ask, but not too sure what I can, can't really say too much. But all I know is it's clean and we're going to do this thing right, and it should be a really successful project. Moving on to AFFL, like I said, they're DDing a lot of assets these past several weeks and months. I do know they are getting closer to making a decision on what AFFL will be, but they're taking their time, and we always take our time, right? Because we want to make sure that whatever goes into this is real and it's legit, and it will have blue sky potential. Because it's not just about being a legit business and making revenue and stuff. It also needs to be blue sky potential. It needs to have the potential to be worth billions, and you need to see that growth there, or it's no point in it being public. So they're juggling a few ideas, and I know they're getting closer, but Rick definitely knows, Wild definitely knows a lot more about that project than I do, but I do know they're getting closer, and I do know it's an extremely clean project. Just like PTEL, they know where every share is at, and all the selling that is going on AFFL is 100% natural. There's no debt there. There's no convertibles. There's no weird old holders out there. This is all just retail, normal retail. So any questions on those two shells, two future projects, feel free to ask, guys. I just kind of wanted to give a little bit of detail on both of those and kind of differentiate the two. And PTEL is much more, I guess, RBMC and me focused. AFFL is much more Steve and I guess RBMC focused, if that makes sense. We expect to have a lot more control of PTEL. Nothing much, Drive. We started at the bottom, man. Any questions, guys? Feel free to ask on those two. I'm going to go ahead and move on to XCPT and the rest of the MAC tickers. Starting from the bottom, XCPT is nickel project, copper project, his quiet one. I'll say what I can say under the extent of NDA. I do know Mac is going to start building XCPT up. For those that don't know, it's incredibly close on the map, like literally physically close to where XTPT is. It's literally just on the other side of the mountain. Are those two projects? But what's crazy is the two sides of the mountains are just completely different geologically. You don't see the antimony where XCPT is. It's just completely different type of ore. But I do know he will be building that up shortly, especially since it's so close to XTPT. So we'll see. I am really excited about that one. It's obviously very clean, always has been, moves very easy. Everything going on with nickel and Indonesia and China having control of all the Indonesian mining companies that control the whole nickel supply chain pretty much. It's a very bullish scenario. It's very similar to what Mac is in with XTPT, I would say, but just more in the early stages. And it's also a much larger source product. But it's very similar. There's only one nickel mine in the U.S. in Michigan, the Eagle Mine. And it is, I don't want to say it's small, but it is pretty small. The U.S. doesn't really have many nickel mines to turn to. And I see that this could end up being a very attractive project with the domestic push for nickel and copper in the U.S. because this is a primarily nickel copper area. You dig into the history and what XCPT owns. There was several past producing nickel mines in the early 1900s. So I do think XCPT is well positioned to do very well in these next 4 years as Mac brings that project online with the other two. XTPT is definitely his main focus. I think that's pretty evident just in the way the updates have been rolling out. But I think that's probably to be expected, right, guys, with how the antimony market is right now. Mac, and he has he knows. I mean, I've talked to Mac all the time. He knows that this is a generational opportunity to capitalize on something that we might never see again. What up, Wild? Wild's doing DD today on some. He's traveling. That's why he's not with me up here today. He's speaking of doing DD for projects. He's traveling and doing DD on some mines right now, which is why he's not up here with me. Just to give y'all a heads up, he's always busting his ass, working hard. that's the way to do it, guys. You know, do your own on-site DD and all that, and get the picture drawn for yourself. But XTPT, yeah, it's crazy times. Mac knows what he has. You know, he knows this is a historic opportunity to obviously make all his shareholders incredibly successful and wealthy, and himself. A lot of catalysts coming up there. You know, the most recent social media update with the annual report from XTPT that talked about permitting is already underway, and we should hear an update on that shortly. That's going to be the next big key step, and I'm thinking we hear something on that any day. So keep your eyes out for that. That's going to be the next big thing there. Once permitting's approved, I expect, you know, Mac to start road construction instantly. I don't expect any pauses here with XTPT once the permitting's approved, which is why I'm always pounding the table on it, because I know it's Nevada and I know the current times, and I reckon XTPT's permit is going to get approved very quickly. And that's what I've heard through the grapevines too, is where everybody's expecting this permit to get approved quickly. Now, could something go wrong? Of course, always. But if it does get approved quickly, like we all expect, road construction should start almost immediately. And, you know, that's when this thing's really going to take on a different level, guys. You know, once the road's in, they already have an established relationship. We've seen it hinted at in PRs, in the investors deck, that they already have connections to where they will be sending their stockpiles to be tested for potential sales. They haven't come out and said who exactly the name is, but they've made it very clear that they're already in talks with mills and mill buyers for their stockpiles upon successful testing. And guys, this road construction is not something that's going to take like 90 days, you know, which is why I'm like pounding the table. Yeah, it's only a few days for the road, and then I know I've been on the meetings, I've been in all the calls, and I've had a lot of my own meetings with the antimony mill owners that are out there in the world right now. And I know once that road is in and they can come in and grab that shit and test it, they're going to be in there very quickly, because everybody is extremely desperate for product. A lot of these companies are desperate for product just so they can run it and get revenues on the books. That's how desperate they are, you know. Like I think I talked about in Discord a little bit. One of the big ones, SPMP, can't remember which one it is. Out in Oman, they're running at like barely 10% capacity right now or something. They can't get hardly enough feedstock to even feed a portion of their mill. Desperate for product is the situation. And it's a little bit different than lithium was during its big squeeze and up to 70,000, because there was little supply on the market and, you know, extreme demand out of nowhere. It's actually a lot different than lithium, because there is no easy near-term project or supply that can come online. The difference with lithium is supply got tight and the price went crazy, but there was still a lot of assets out in the world, especially in China, Africa, DRC. There were a lot of projects that were very easy to come online to fill that demand rather quickly. And that's why the lithium price was flattened the way it was. Lithium itself is a much more common thing to find than antimony. Lithium, honestly, is not that rare. Antimony, though, is not easy to find. There's not that many places in the U.S. that have it, period. Even fewer have it economical. And there are no projects that are anywhere close, including the U.S. and elsewhere in the world, to coming online. China has been draining all their mines and sources for years. I mean, that's where all the supplies come from for probably 2 decades at least, which makes sense as to why a lot of their mines are starting to see, I guess, production constraints, because you got to think if they've been the ones, doing all the supply for the last 20 years or so. Because prior to that, I will say in the 80s and 90s, I know there was a lot of antimony production in the European Union and by the Soviets and stuff. But for the last 2 decades or so, it's been all China. And mine, even the largest mines, their lives are usually 10 to 20 years for mine life. So I reckon China is starting to see a lot of their sources drained, and they have to look for supply elsewhere, and there isn't really any. The ones that are large, like Perpetua, I wouldn't even call them large. They're still years away. Even if all goes perfect for them, still years away, at least 2 years. And like I've always said, they can only meet 30% of the U.S.'s demand at full capacity. And I, along with many experts, reckon PBTA, even if approved, will never be approved at full capacity. So it's a very interesting scenario. UAMY, is the other big name out there. They've been scouring the whole world for assets, to be honest. They picked up some stuff in Alaska, like we saw on the news recently, if you pay attention to UAMY. But once again, UAMY is a mill company. They have the big upper hand in that industry because they have pretty much the only U.S.-based mill that is capable of running antimony feedstock. That's their big W, right? But their mines, once again, like the stuff they just picked up in Alaska and some of their other projects they got in like Montana and stuff, they're years away. And there's no real solid like stockpiles or anything like that they can draw from. It makes XTPTs in a very unique scenario. A very unique opportunity for an OTC, which I don't think they will be much longer because Mac is moving very fast on that end. They can be the first mine that is actually producing antimony in the U.S., which is going to be a huge deal, especially as more brokers open up, because Mac, like I said, he's moving fast on the SEC reporting and full audit side. I know the name change is underway and getting close. All this is going to open up way more buyers. We've had this discussion on what it would do for SDRC, but what a lot of people don't actually realize is we have that conversation on SDRC a lot, how much it will affect the buying and how much it will affect the liquidity and how much better SDRC will be once it's SEC reporting. I don't think many here realize that XTPT is going to be SEC reporting soon, very soon. Same with BRGC, much sooner than SDRC will be. SDRC is in the infancy stages of something Mac has already been working on for 6 to 12 months. So something to think about there as well. But yeah, as that goes on, it's going to open up more and more buyers. I don't think XTPT is going to stay down here. And I expect the antimony price itself, I think we continue to see that climb towards 75,000. Very similar to the level that lithium got. The only difference is I don't foresee it crashing the way lithium did. I do, over time, by the time we get to 2030, I do expect that antimony will be back down to a normalization level, but I don't think it will ever go back to 10,000 to 20,000 like it was when it started. When we started XTPT, antimony was 11,000 a ton. And what's crazy is we went headstrong, full bullish, super motivated about that asset in XTPT when antimony was 11,000. We knew even at those prices, XTPT had the potential and it was economical and it was going to be a winner. Now that antimony's at 56,000, it's almost unbelievable. But a lot of the experts say that even as supply hits the market by 2030, they expect 30 to 35,000 a ton, even after the downturn that lithium has seen. Which, if we're still seeing, even after a massive downturn, if we're seeing a normalization level of 30,000 for antimony per ton, company like XTPT is just going to be raking in dough. I mean, it's going to be like SDRC when they come online. We expect it to be profitable at 11,000 a ton. We're going to be that's nuts. So, yeah, Tyler, you would know more, man. Yeah, I always see all these. They're very confident about their Alaskan stuff, but yeah. I don't think that will be necessary, Drasgo. No. Don't think a share buyback will even be necessary. As more brokers open up, XTPT goes SEC reporting. I mean, pull up UAMY's chart, Drasgo. UAMY was an OTC stock, not that long ago. And they were not that long ago, they were the same share price as XTPT. As XTPT becomes SEC reporting, more brokers open up. They get in the media more from permitting being approved, the drilling, the moving of the piles, and if they secure a deal with the mill company, it's not going to last down here, man. I'm very confident we'll see UAMY prices. If all these steps proceed forward successfully, I'm very confident we see UAMY prices on XTPT. This is still first page of a large book. Yeah, very tiny. Yeah, any other questions on XTPT or XCPT, guys? Go ahead and shoot. Can there be reductions, Drasgo? Definitely there can be reductions, but yeah, I don't foresee buybacks even being necessary. Once the market gets a whiff of what is going on at XTPT, and a lot of it just has to do with being like perception, being viewed as legitimate. A lot of people just immediately kick XTPT to the curb because they're OTC, just like they do to SDRC. So as soon as people see the stockpiles being moved by a New York Stock Exchange company and a New York Stock Exchange company buying those piles, it's game over, man. Everybody at that point in the market will know XTPT is not an OTC scam, and it's game over, man. It'll be game over at that point. Yeah, they're waiting for the permit. I mean, nothing much. We're gonna probably hear until that permit is approved. But the great thing is I think we hear something on that permit being approved any day. I mean, it could be next week for all I know. It's Nevada, the permitting company that Mac hired. As usual, Mac, as he's always done, spares no expense. The man has his money. That is definitely for sure. He funds a lot of this stuff himself, and he never spares any expense. He got one of the best permitting companies to do the work. They've done an incredible job, and they are the type of company that I reckon gets this thing approved very quickly. So I think we see that any day. And yeah, road construction shortly after that, probably a week or so to initiate the crew to do the work. And then I would say if you pull up all the estimations, it looked like 10 to 14 days to complete the road. So once again, very quick turnaround. Oh yeah. Yeah, that Australian one, Tyler. yeah, you mean in Alaska, MVA? Yeah, that is accurate. That is accurate. I do agree with MVA is a lot closer than anybody else over there. LRV is the other one. I would say it's close, but they're in Australia, ASX. But once again, you pull up LRV's numbers, and it's like so many other antimony companies I see out there. They're a gold company. They're not really an antimony company. Low grades, tiny resources. I foresee a lot of issues. I mean, yeah, the gold levels are good and probably keep a lot of this project economical. But in terms of actually supplying the massive demand right now, none of those mines, they don't have the grade, they don't have the resource, they don't have what it needs. XTPT, especially if you guys read the petrography report, it's on another level, man. It's why I loved that asset from the very start. All the history always lined up. I think, that's the other big part everybody has to remember is it's not just going to be the piles. The drilling is going to be happening simultaneously. So it's not just going to be the piles being moved out and possible revenue starting. At the same time, Mac is going to be proven out for the mineral resource estimate, because also remember, guys, XTPT already has a 43101 done. So with drilling, they're going to be moving right into a mineral resource estimate. We could have a mining company that is already producing revenue and also already have a mineral resource estimate. And that's what really excites me about XTPT, because I reckon once they start drilling, and you guys, if you look at their most recent social media update, you can see the planned drilling map, like where they're going to put the drill pads. They have them lined all the way down the canyon. It looks like a pretty extensive campaign. They're going to be putting drills in the Arents, the IHX, the Antimony King, and the King Solomon. And it also looks like they're putting a couple drills above the Arents, which means that would be probably the U-Bet area is what I think they're aiming for if it's above the Arents. That's a pretty extensive campaign. And I reckon that after they do that drilling down this canyon on those 5 or 6 major mines that have been talked about, I'm sitting here and I think they find out it's bigger than PVTA. I really do. I think they find out that this ends up being the largest antimony deposit in the U.S. No, we need the road, Hawkeye, is what it was. So, the piles that have been accurately, I guess, measured, more accurately measured, are the ones that are closer up the canyon. If you look at the past piles picture that's been put out, you can tell all the piles that have been tested more in depth are all the ones that are closer inside the canyon. All the ones that are more outside haven't been tested yet, because it's living hell to get to them. We're talking the craziest switchbacks, man. SDRC style. So the answer is most of those piles need the road that is going to be put in to be efficiently weighed tonnage wise. Yep. Yeah, no debt. Yep. Mac owns all the debt. Yeah, I don't know how many acres PPTA is. I'd have to look at that out of curiosity. I mean, those companies always go nuts, so I wouldn't be surprised if they have something like 20,000 acres. But yeah, grade and resource, I really think XTPT is going to blow them out of the water. Everything in history, when you line the two up against one another, speaks volumes. The only reason PPTA is the way they are and who they are is because of the media. They're a big media stunt. They really are. And I think a lot of it has to do with just like how China and Africa do their PR stunts where, you know, we got this much gold resources. You know, America has to do the same thing because we don't have any antimony. So at the same time, America has to flex their muscles and say, you know, we have this and we have that, even though, you know, we can't really access it because they'll poison the salmon waters. You know, it's the same thing. You know, all these countries, us and them, you know, we all pump our resources for national security reasons, I think, especially right now. But I think when it gets down to the nitty gritty and drilling happens and further petrography and testing of the core and all that shit, I mean, look at the guys. Pull up the satellite test of XTPT sometime. Look at the size of the red area. I think they find something real historic there. And we're only a few months away from drilling, probably. So exciting times. And you know how, to add to that, you know, it's kind of like SDRC where, you know, we know we have 20 plus piles right now, right? So much of XCPT's property has not been accessed, has never been seen, just because we can't get to it. God knows what else is found out there once the road is in and more in-depth exploration can be done. I wouldn't be surprised if we find another 20 piles on top of the 20 piles that have already been found. The PR explains it pretty well, DT. They're helping with operations, bringing in experts, funding. Excuse me. Yeah, check out the PR, DC. It explains it pretty well. The main thing is we know that it's going to require funding to complete these initial steps, you know, some big money. And that was the main role that the advisors from SDRC were helping with, was circumventing the multiple offers and deals and funding opportunities XTPT had in front of them, which is good. It's good for us. You know, I know that Mac had a lot of options, guys, and the reason SDRC's advisors was chosen versus other interested parties is because we trust them. We have seen them do it. We know what they're about. We know they keep the shareholders safe. Never have done a financing deal that puts anybody in jeopardy. So we wanted to ensure that anytime money or funding has to happen on XTPT, that is treated the same way. You know, clean and legit and shareholder friendly. So that was the main goal. So it's a big deal. Not some weird third party or something, you know, it's people we trust. Yeah, anything else on XTPT? I'll move on. I'll touch on BRGC actually. Obviously the next big thing there is the full project mapping, which I know we've been talking about for a while, but I do expect that to kick off soon. But the big thing obviously underway with BRGC lately is the big push towards SEC reporting, getting all those past non-filed filings in from like the ancient times, you know, 20 plus years ago. I don't even know why it's necessary, but it is. So BRGC has been doing all that. You guys can see all the filings they've put in recently, and this will allow for BRGC to reapply. It usually takes about 60 days from my understanding and what I've heard. It takes about 60 days for the SEC to affect the change from alternative reporting to SEC reporting. So I would expect, maybe 45 days or so, maybe. If everything goes well, we see BRGC SEC reporting, which is obviously going to send it to a different ball league too. A lot more trusted, a lot more buyers will open up. I'm looking at the weekly chart at BRGC, and I see it. It's not pretty, but it's turning around. It's very evident. The weekly chart showing higher lows week after week. So I do think we are starting to see a turnaround there. The mapping, the mapping, I would expect probably to line up somewhere in the same time frame as the SEC reporting, which that could be pretty effective. But yeah, exciting times there. Name change with the filings being fixed should not be an issue anymore. So a lot of positive things to come over there as well. Any questions, guys? Feel free to ask anytime. I think that's it. I move into SDRC here, which is probably what most people want to hear. So SDRC, guys, Gunts asked yesterday, what are some of the major catalysts, what we can look for and expect in the near future? Because I think everybody's kind of too fixated on the revenue. Like they think that that's the only thing to look for and the only thing that's coming, and we're waiting for months to hear another update. No, that's completely false. I actually expect more updates out of SDRC any day. They've been really busy. Like I said, the Gunts yesterday, a few things I would be looking out for these next few days. If you guys recall, the last big batch of assays that they did prior to this one, we got an evaluation with it. And we still haven't gotten the new evaluation with all these new assays. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that new overall evaluation using the new assay data that SDRC has. That's a big one. And then the other big one that I think everybody's missing for some reason. Excuse me. I think the big one everybody's missing is the Unity piles. I know they already pulled a lot of product from those piles last season. I am sure they're having assays done on it. And that's the other big thing people are missing is we could get assays on the Unity piles any day. And if those come back showing similar to the 25K ton pile they're running, that's going to be monstrous because we're talking, 200,000 tons of piles. So if we get those assays back and they come out similar to the knot that is being ran through right now, I think people are underestimating that. Also, yeah, I think, Tyler said that. Yep, all the equipment set up too. I wouldn't be surprised if we get some new videos, maybe a PR on all of the new equipment they're putting in and how it's operating, the furnace, the new lab in Gem County, the new separation table that's supposed to work better on the PGMs. And yeah, there is a Unity Mine video coming. I did hear that. There's going to be a video tour of the Unity Mine coming. So there's a lot of, as usual, people listen to noise too much and they just, don't listen to draw your own conclusions, reach out to the company yourself, go visit the site yourself. Always form your own opinions in DD because all this noise out there is from people that literally know nothing about SDRC, never talked to one person at the company. Always form your own opinion and research. I expect a lot in the next coming days and weeks. And that's the thing, Tyler. Ignore the noise and watch what's happening on the chart. I I don't know, Hawkeye. That would probably be a better question for Wild. I don't know if they're closer, really. Oh yeah, I expect a lot of that, Tyler. This coming season. That will obviously wait until the snow melts and they can get better access up there. But yeah, they know that everyone loves the videos. There will be a lot more videos this year. I expect a lot more of Dan being underground and finding new areas, man. I definitely expect, because I know they're working on they have plans to work on that downward spiral, right? So expect a lot more of that. Acquisitions also, I think a lot of people are forgetting that the Rescue is still out there and the Silver King is still out there. The Rescue is the main one that I have eyes on. That was Endomine's other big, which I think Endomine still might own. And as we know, SDRC just did the deal with Unity, which obviously involved Endomines. So I would also be having eyes on the Rescue to be acquired in some way, or some kind of deal to be done there, which is going to be another big deal if SDRC takes that over. You guys can research the Rescue. It's another significant asset in the Warren area. It's the other biggie. And then, the big thing obviously everybody's waiting for are, the revs. We might see that from the number 3 cons, like it's been mentioned a few times. I just think what I see the main problem that SDRC is having is there's no mills that in the US that will just take the product exactly how it is without bending them over, right? So SDRC wants to, just like SBSW has done, to be honest, in Montana. You guys, I don't know how many of y'all know this, but the same thing in Montana with SBSW. They've had to come up with their own proprietary method to extract the PGMs and gold from their ore. And they have their very own proprietary method that works on their specific type of ore that they had to figure out themselves and that they don't share with anybody else. And, even their method, for example, might be completely worthless to SDRC because their ore is completely different. It might not work on it at all. So everybody always asks, why can't you take, the number 3 cons? I don't think they can take the number 3 cons to a seller right now, or a buyer, I'm sorry, because there's still osmium in it, and there's still iridium in it, and there's still these other things in it that these mills won't accept, or they'll accept and bend SDRC over on. So just like SBSW did, SDRC is bringing it in-house. They're nailing down their own proprietary method to get all the metals to a level of purity where it makes sense to then sell to those buyers. Because I've seen it myself with the antimony market. SMPM is a great example in Oman. You can do a deal with them, but they will only take your antimony. So, for example, if XTPT did a deal with them in Oman, and they sent all their antimony over there, but what if their antimony had silver, gold, PGMs in it, for example? The mill will take all the gold, silver, everything else, keep it for themselves, and they only pay you for the antimony. That's how it works. So if that's how it, if SDRC is getting the same reception, it's a shit deal. If they're going to a place and they're saying, well, yeah, we'll take it, but we'll only pay you for the gold. We're going to keep everything else. that sucks. That's a big low blow right there. And I guarantee you that's what they're running into. So when they say they're looking out for what's right for the shareholders, they are. And I know they're getting very close to probably getting those levels to a purity that they need. Yeah. 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 So SDRC is doing the smart thing, in my opinion. Yeah, any questions, guys, feel free to ask. I'm just catching up on what Tyler's saying. Yeah, yep. That's exactly what the mills do. I've seen it myself, so. But that's the big thing, right? Number 3 cons are obviously what they're targeting for closest to revenue. I know SDRC, a lot of people say, it's going to take months and this and that. I don't think so. I think it's going to take days to weeks for them to figure out where they need to get the level and how to scale it and then how to sell it. SDRC never moves slow. I don't think they're looking to separate 3 cons. I think they're looking to just probably, I guess, would be the word for it, but bring the purity levels up, because I'd have to look at the number 3 cons again, but I reckon that's what the issue is. Because I'm pretty sure the number 3 cons still have all the PGMs in them and all that mess, all the osmium and iridium. And the osmium and iridium, I know, is what's doing it. These mills, they won't take it. They won't take it with the osmium in there. And that might be it. All the others, they don't want to take it with the osmium in there, period. Yeah, but if they sold number 3 for just silver and gold, they would be getting screwed majorly. Like, it would be like selling something that's worth 1,000 for like 200. Yeah, one big block of concentrate, and then it usually goes to a refiner. So like, if once SDRC gets it to a level of purity that is required, Harry, for the refiner, it will go to the refiner, and the refiner does the rest. So SDRC's job is usually to get it to like a certain purity level, like 92% or something like that. And then they hand it over to the refiner, and the refiner's able to do the rest. At least that's how I understand it. Yeah. Yeah, maybe. I know they're doing a lot of very different things, Tyler. A lot of the stuff they're doing is actually what I think needs to be done to some of BYRG's ore, like I've discussed. I think there's something really weird geologically going on over there too. But yeah, guys, I've been on SDRC since 2019. I know Sean very well. I know Dan very well. And anytime someone thinks something's going to take 3 months, it ends up taking 1 month. I know, worst team to bet against. Worst OTC team to bet against. Seriously, guys. As soon as you think, and I've seen it, like when SDRC went down to 10 cents, back like a year ago or so, it always looks the worst right before they fucking nail your ass. That's how SDRC's always been since the very beginning. They even got laid back at 2 cents. Wild's probably laughing his ass off, right? They even did it to laid back at 2 cents. Made it look like the world's ending. Laid back, was bashing SDRC, this and that, and then whoop, bam! It's the same thing. The same thing's gonna happen. wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. They got the furnace. From my understanding, the furnace is what they needed to better separate out those heavier metals, being the osmium and iridium. So possibly sweet potato in my butt. I don't know. It's a good possibility, man. But yeah, SDRC loves to punish the haters and non-believers. I've seen it every single uptrend since 2019. They'll always nail you right when you think the world and SDRC is at its worst. And right now, I know it's not at its worst, but a lot of people have a perception that it's at its worst. So I reckon SDRC is getting really close to probably burning everybody again. In the good way of burning, Hey, wow, do you want to say anything, man? You're probably just listening in, man. But if you want to say anything, you can hop on, man. You might know more about good shit, man. You might know more about number 3 cons than I do, but that's my understanding. I'd have to look at the essays again to get a better picture. I have to pull those up. But that's what I got, everyone. Please ask any questions if I missed anything. I'll sit around for a few minutes, answer any lingering questions, but that's about it. It's all I got. Much love. Thanks as always for being here, being a part of this Discord. We're growing faster than ever, almost 3,200 members. It's really cool to see. So something's gonna shift soon. You can't have consistent progress from the companies, ever growing investors, and keep us down forever. It's gonna be like a spring. Not much on Mags, Hawk. Not much, unfortunately. So Dennis isn't there. I don't remember what the last update I told y'all were, but Dennis isn't there anymore. He retired. We were working directly with Jim Magnuson, and that was pretty much the last update we had. Is we're now working directly with Jim Magnuson, but they never show initiative or move fast or do anything really, Hawkeye, without us having to ask 12 times. And I think the main roadblock with the mags that we have to get over is like there's so many hands in the cookie jar, as in there's so many family members that own pieces of these things, and every family member has a different opinion or perception on how things should be valued or how things should be merged in or done, or it's such a convoluted mess. I can see why there's been lawsuits in the past between that family. Let's just say that. But do I think it all gets figured out eventually? Still, yes. In a positive way, yes. I'm just not sure yet how that will happen. Somebody needs to get motivated enough in that family to make it happen is the problem, because Wild and I, for example, we can only do so much, right? I don't own VINs. I can't force the mags to make those final next steps to do what's necessary, right? But we're always trying. What they need, probably more than anything, is someone to go to Idaho, go to Wallace, and spend a few weeks or months in Wallace and probably literally get everything in order for them, with them, in person. If I'm being honest, that's probably what has to happen, because if they don't have that, they just don't stay consistent, and they don't move at the speed we want them to move. So, yeah. It's a shame, because now would be the time, especially to we have amazing plans there. I know exactly what I would do. They have home run potential there. It's a very easy setup. They already have leases in place, a lot of them that can be redone in a very positive way. They have home run potential. I just think they need to understand that. Maybe they have so much money they don't care. And maybe that's part of it too. You know? All right, everyone. No other questions? Major concerns. I think SDRC, obviously, everybody's major concern is revenue timeline and separation of the metals, but in my opinion, absolutely nothing to be concerned about with SDRC. They remain my most confident position. Sean and Dan always figure it out, and they always figure it out 10 times faster than expected. Maybe did I forget BYRG? I might have forgotten BYRG. Shit, my bad, Wall. I'll go over that. Good Lord, I'm over here daydreaming. No major concerns on SDRC. XTPT, very similar. It's about speed there. It definitely is about speed because we're not talking gold or silver. We're talking about a unique commodity. I would say a lot of people think there's a risk there, maybe because of the antimony prices eventually coming back down, similar to lithium. But like I said, I don't foresee the same downturn there. I think it normalizes at much higher levels. Mac has all the control there. So as long as Mac doesn't one day wake up and decide to screw everybody, then once again, I think concerns and risks are very low. Same goes for his other two. He has all the control there. So as long as he doesn't decide to wake up one day and just have a very random feeling of just wanting to screw everybody, I don't see any concerns with his projects either. He's already shown that for years he won't do that. He always keeps things very clean and puts all his debts in his own name, and he also self-funds like the majority of everything. All these tests and shit, it's cash coming straight out of his pocket. So once again, low risk there, in my opinion, of course. We've learned a lot these last 5 years. We've learned a lot of ways to avoid companies and future concerns, like what we're doing with PTEL East-North, right? We've learned a lot these last 5 years. We've learned how to avoid potential concerns like KVAR and that type of stuff. We've learned a lot. BYRG, I would say a lot of the major concerns are past us now. The dock was a big one. A lot of people thought we would never get rid of the dock. I even had other CEOs of our investments say we would never get rid of the dock, in their opinion. And we successfully got rid of the dock. So I would say that was one of the major concerns, because with the dock came like a tentacle of bad people, right? A lot of the past nefarious parties on BYRG were tentacles that were related to the doc himself. Obviously, no surprise there. So once we kind of cut the head off the snake, all the other tentacles kind of lost their power. That was really the because I don't want to call BNY a major concern, because I know what they have. They're an institution that is working with us. It's not a random volatile felon that you don't know what type of reaction you're going to get out of. So I would say, we got past the last major concern of BYRG. Now it's about honestly just rebuilding the stock, because nothing ever changed with the company. Everything has always been great within the company itself of BYRG. We've been growing the team, growing the asset, growing our understanding of the asset. Justin's been building a hell of a lot of connections, working really closely with Wyoming Geological Survey, University of Wyoming, the head of geology at the University of Wyoming. BYRG is very entwined in the university and everything happening at the geology department there, which is great. I expect even more interns out there this year. We had like 1 or 2 out last year at BYRG. I heard there might be full classes out this year at BYRG, like geology classes from the University of Wyoming. So it's not just, shareholders and investors and us who see the potential of the new Rambler and the asset and the geology. It's also the government's Wyoming Geological Survey. It's the University of Wyoming. School of Energy Resources is also starting to get involved. BYRG has a lot of interested parties. A lot of them are starting to help pay for things through grants too, which is also great. And BYRG is never better. I would just call BNY the last roadblock, and BNY is underway. It's been a lot of back and forth debate, a lot of back and forth negotiations on price and fairness, and how things, a lot of discourse on how things should have been done, and there is legal involved, and it is progressing in a positive manner. I know they are not selling still. Their shares are not hitting the market. And we expect a positive resolution to the BNY situation, whether it comes legally or whether it comes through us peacefully coming to a resolution with BNY. But I do know it is going to come to a resolution in a positive way. I'm very, very confident in that. What did I miss? Anything else east north? I guess like SDRC. No, I mean, Mac's not really. We're in a great spot. What's happening is what I always thought would happen. I guess east north. I always had a feeling that we would see what is happening right now, a major push to bring everything back home, bring back domestic mining, and I think that this is going to lead to a new generation of investors and a whole new perception on the industry in America. I think we are very, very much in the infancy stages. We were very early in here. We were very early in this Discord. Just like with MJ, I was a couple years early before anybody even talked about it. The same thing here, very early. Now what's happening is we ourselves are starting to see the very first page turnover of the book, which is, the discussions and the political changes and the media saying all this needs to come back home. We're just in the first inning. I expect very positive developments and, uptrends all the way into 2030. We're in the right place at the right time, and we're at the infancy stage of growth that I think will occur for the next 4 to 6 years. But yeah, I'll touch base on BYRG just a little bit. I mean, I kind of touched on in my tweet today. The main things, obviously, we're looking for next are that BNY block resolution. I'm super excited about the Malcolm McCallum essays, guys. He wrote all the major reports on the new Rambler back in the 60s, they were all written by that man. Justin's been working with him, meeting with him a lot recently, getting a bunch of knowledge, a bunch of samples, like we saw in the pictures. And that sample came directly from the new Rambler piles that were actually, what McCallum said is that came from the piles that were later bulldozed into the new Rambler pit. So these were samples taken from new Rambler piles before they were even bulldozed into the ground, like covered up. So we're expecting pretty insane results, I guess, but also it's going to help us a lot with understanding what we need to find and look for geologically in that area that matches what they were taking out back in the day. And then, the IP testing is going to be a big one. It's going to be a more detailed picture of what we saw in the Aeromag, much more in-depth, and it will provide BYRG with the drilling targets it needs. And I think that's going to be another really exciting update and progress when that happens. But East North, no, if I had any major concerns, I would say, BRGC and the lithium price, I always get people asking about. I can see the lithium price and the lithium asset itself being of concern, especially if you're talking like, I would hate to be a brine company right now. Let me put it this way though. BRGC is not just a lithium company. They are so far out from just being a lithium company, and I think that's what many people miss. It's the Midnight Owl Lithium Project. It produced lithium in the 70s very effectively, has a lot of great rich history about lithium, but that area produced gold, silver, and copper for like 70 years before anybody cared about lithium. That's the thing to remember there. Assays, XRFs, libs, third-party stuff, all the labs, they all show it too. It's not just lithium there. There's a lot of gold there. There's a lot of copper there. There's a lot of other interesting stuff going on there. People miss BRGC, I think, and it will come to realization in the future. I think as more testing is done and drilling is done and this and that, and people see, oh shit, this isn't just a lithium asset. This has a lot of other stuff going on. I think as more come to realize that, BRGC will go back to where it was before, because it's much more than just a very rich. I mean, it's very special in what it has with lithium. That's for goddamn sure. I've never seen on any asset. The only one I've seen close to it is Patriot, with the type of grade of lithium that BRGC has. But that just adds to the value, right? Because Patriot doesn't have the gold, the copper, and these other things that go with it. BRGC does. And I think as more testing is done, assays, mapping, drilling, and all that comes to light, we're going to find out BRGC is an incredible asset. And the thing is, like I've always said, it's probably out of all of the projects, the best well-positioned. Like where it is in the state, close to major infrastructure, ore sources, it's all right there. I think placement-wise, BRGC probably has the best location. But no, I would be concerned, I guess, east-north, if basically BRGC was solely a lithium company. I would be scared shitless. But I'm very confident in BRGC because I know they're not just a lithium company. because I foresee lithium being stagnant for probably another few years at least, and it might never be what it was again. I could see that, but I don't think it will matter in the end, because BRGC has, just like SDRC, right? When it comes down to it, and it comes down to separation of selling of metals, you know, you're not just going to say, I got all this great shit, but let me just sell the lithium, right? You know, when it comes down to the separating and selling of metals, everything's going to be sold, you know. If the ore is broken down, it has a lot of lithium, a lot of gold, a lot of copper, all three things are going to be getting sold, not just the lithium. So, and other than that, yeah. My major concern with the mags is they just never fucking move. You know, they're so rich they don't care. You know, I know that happens to a lot of people. But like I'm trying to tell them over and over again, is they need to care, because this is their legacy, and you know, they should care. Not too much to talk about on Red Beryl, East North. We'll probably be doing some more exploration out there this year in Utah. I actually have a geologist out there right now, looking over some of the rhyolite hotspots we've pinpointed. But nothing too crazy going on right there. The main thing we have to do is strike a deal with the main family there, East North, is, to be honest, is what has to happen. And that has not been easy. I'm not sure, Tyler. I'm not sure, man. They have leases in place on the ones that matter. So I'm not sure if that means something. Might not be allowed to take those type of discussions if they have leases in place. I'm not sure. They're just very out of touch, Tyler, with what they even have, man. Like, what's the best way to put it? I know more about their minds than they do. Like, they are so out of touch, man. They don't get it, man. They're involved in a different type of business, and they don't, and have never done mining, and they don't understand, I don't think, what their father did. I just pray that my kids appreciate and better understand mines than his do. The vibe I get is they went much more towards the lawyer and hotel management route than the mining route. A lot of times it's when I'm on calls with them, it's us educating them about their own companies, which is just, it's always, yeah, you know. They own so much stuff, Tyler, to give you an idea. They own so many mines, and they own so many companies, they don't even know. They don't even know anymore. They're like, I think we still own this shell and this mine, but let me double check. It's been like 8 years. Those are the type of answers we get, man. You know, they are so out of touch. Like, they just have millions sitting around, and they don't even, like, it feels like they don't even know or keep track of it. Very interesting. Thanks, East North. Thanks, everyone. Much love. Any other questions, feel free to ask. Dave on BYRG is never better, man. I always like to give him props because when we first started with BYRG, he wasn't the healthiest. He definitely had a lot more weight on him, a lot of health problems. And I just want to say to the few investors left on here that he's come a long way. The guy exercises daily, he's eating healthy, he's traveling, he lost a lot of weight, did all the tests and got his body where it needs to be. And he's never better, man. That makes me happy because that is going to be good for the company long term. Need to be alert, alive, and healthy. And he's come a long way these last couple of years. Oh yeah, man. Yeah. All right, everyone. Much love. Have a blessed weekend. What time is it? Yeah, I was on here for an hour and a half. Hell yeah. All right. Much love. There'll be a recorded version. I'll be adding graphics and stuff to it so you guys can actually visually see a lot of stuff we're talking about. So DL, reach out to Dan Howley, shoot Dan Howley an email. Just let him know that you're an investor in SDRC. You're in Sonny's Discord and you would like to plan a mine visit. They are going to do a tour, I believe, this year. They're probably only going to do one or two is what they'll probably do. So like everybody, because I know they have like already 5 to 10 people have reached out in the last couple of weeks for a tour. So what I reckon they will do is probably set like 1 or 2 dates through the year that everybody can come to. That's what they did in the past. One thing I would recommend is make sure you get a good rental vehicle. Get like a truck or 4x4 because it is hell. It ain't easy drive. Make sure you have something that's not low to the ground. Yeah, no sedans. Yeah, leave your McLarens at home. All right, everyone. Much love. Yeah, I hope to have more Red Beryl updates this summer. We are going to be doing more exploration. It's a very convoluted situation up there, east-north. Very, what's the word for it? Disbanded family situation up there. What we did is we completely surrounded the family and slowly have been taking over a lot of the pieces that they also owned since like the 50s, 60s, 70s. It hasn't been the most friendly situation so far. I always try, but not everybody's the most easy to work with. But the good thing is we have probably the greatest Red Beryl lapidarist under our company. We've been building, I know for a fact we have probably the largest inventory and supply of Red Beryl that exists. I've done a lot of research and I don't know anybody else that has a more Red Beryl than our company. So not only do we own probably the largest amount out of the ground, but we also own the majority of the ground itself. And every year we're getting closer and closer to owning 100% of the area because the family isn't very motivated to make a deal, but they also aren't they don't have the money to keep up with maintaining all of it either. So they've been losing pieces of it over time to us. So we're getting there. Exciting times ahead there. I always have a lot of people reaching out from universities and stuff like that, wanting to visit and, do this and that on the property. What I'm really trying to prove there, East North, is we know the Ruby Violet pit has that's where all of it came from. It was a very centralized pit where all the red beryl came from. 60,000 carats came from that one area. Like it's like a 1 acre, 2 acre square. But the big rumor has always been, are there any extensions? Does the vein, do the red beryl veins extend out any further into the property? For 100 years, nobody's found any extensions still. That's what we've been working on. That's what we were working on last summer. We'll be working on more again this summer with Jared and some of our contracted geologists. We are trying to locate and prove out if any extend from the main pit, because geologically they should. That's the conclusion we've come to, at least, is geologically it makes sense that they should. We have been able to, using all the old records from KenCott and geological reports on the red beryl area, we've been able to locate and pinpoint exactly where all the lava flowed. So the volcano that erupted back then, and all the lava that subsequently flowed from that volcano interacted with this chemical reaction with the manganese in the area. That's what created the red beryl itself. We have pinpointed on the map where all that lava during that episode traveled. We call it the rhyolite lava flow. We've tracked where all that lava went during that eruption. Theoretically, that lava is what interacted to create the red beryl veins. Since we have pinpointed that, it does show that the lava flow extended way further out than that middle pit. Theoretically, there should be extensively more red beryl in and around and near the pit. That's what we're trying to confirm. If so, it would be, obviously a big deal, big discovery, but also it would benefit us because it would make the older family in the central pit area, it's mean, but it would make them not worthless, but worthless to us at that point, right? Because then we can just work all the extensions and we don't need them anymore. So we're getting there. Yeah, Tyler, just let me know, man. And if you need anything special done, like you want a certain shape of a gem, like marquee or circle, you know what I mean? Like any emerald, any type of shape you want, Jared can do. Like I said, we have probably the most skilled and one of the very few people in the world even capable red beryl lapidarius on our team. That's all he does. He works on red beryl and buys and sells fossils all day from Utah. Great guy, and he's an expert, and he can make any shape you need. He did a marquee one for us recently, really beautiful. Everything he's doing for us right now, and that's what I mean by we're building inventory. Everything he does for us right now, it goes immediately to GIA, and then GIA certifies it, gets it back to us, and then we're proceeding on either selling it as GIA certified pieces, or they'll be put into jewelry. But we're in no rush to sell anything. We aren't selling anything because we are purposely trying to, I guess, keep a lock on the industry, because we want to have 100% control. I want to own the asset. I want to own the entire source where it comes from, and I also want to own all the product. That way we can control the whole market. All right, everyone. Much love. Have a blessed weekend. I'll try again. And I'll always be around for questions. Anybody can DM me. And yeah, man. Much love, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Beryl, let's get it.